Hello and welcome to Champagne Channeling. I am so excited for this episode. I have with me today Renata. She is an astrologist in Canada, and I connected with her about a year ago. And you gave me one of the best astrology readings I've ever had in my life. I love astrology. I fell in love with it when I was probably around 10. And your reading was so awesome because it was stuff I could use today. And so please, well, first of all, welcome. And then I would love for you to introduce yourself, say hi to my guests, and tell me a little bit about what you do.
So yes, hi everyone. I'm Renata, and the titles I go by are I'm an astrologer. I'm also a Reiki master, a spiritual and business mentor, as well as a naturopath. So I do wear a lot of hats, but regardless of the hat or the label you want to slap on me, it all comes down to helping people be in their alignment so they could service the world the way they were born to. And I'm typically work with a lot of spiritual entrepreneurs, healers, light workers, empaths to help them confidently embody their gifts, right? Because I believe when we are in alignment, then we're here to fulfill naturally what we all came here to do.
Yes. And I love that. And every time, I hear you speak, I love your Instagram. I'm like a huge soccer fan, which if you guys are into TikTok, which I am, I think that was like the one thing during COVID that got me through it. It was TikTok. And Renata is brilliant, like brilliant at them. She's an artist. She's hilarious. Your sense of humor is like straight up my alley. But I think the way that you interpret what is going on always makes it digestible, because a lot of times there's these astrologists that's like there's something always huge going on, like this and release what's not serving you, and it dilutes everything for me personally. And so the way that you come across on social media and then you do the full moon rituals, I love. I'm a huge fan.
Thank you. Yeah, and I feel that way too because there's certain things that are cyclical in astrology, like a new moon or a full moon. So there's always something new, or there's something that is being released. But I do find, like, and I made a post about it, like every other day it's a special day, and this day and that day, and every day this is the day, this is the window. If you don't use the window, and I'm just like, oh my, that is not how life works, because we are all, well, the planets positioned in the sky right now sure have these collective themes that influence all of us, but it's going to influence, or it's going to affect each of our consciousness differently, and it depends on what's going on in our personal chart. So that's why I always come down to what's showing up for you personally. This is the generic theme or the energy, but how that expresses itself will be very different for each of us, depending how much healing you've done, work you've personally done, what's going on in your life, where that's playing out in the area of your life. So I hear you. That's why I was like, this is overwhelming. And like it just, to me, I'm like, what is this?
I know. I agree. And you always say, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you always have this approach like, this is in your chart. Here is it gone right. Here is it gone wrong. And I love that because it really made me look in the mirror and see the aspects that I needed to really work on. Because when you said this is what it's like gone wrong, I knew right then and there, I was like, yeah, I am going wrong in that area. I knew it. And that's what I love, because sometimes when you get a little bit too technical or use the scientific words, or like trying with this, or there's all this vocabulary. And when somebody signs up for an astrology session, especially if it's you're a beginner at this, we don't really care. We don't know what that means. We want to know how to view ourselves through a compassionate lens, and what we need to do to be in the gone right area.
Yeah, totally.
So good at that.
And that's why I try to make even those technical terms, I'll break down, like, these two plans are having this conversation, but their conversation is difficult, or this conversation brings out these challenges, and this is how the energy plays out in your life. And people are like, okay, got it. Like, so I fully agree, because then it goes over people's heads and they're too focused on that technical term instead of the actual message.
Yeah. And I'd love to know a little bit about, because you were a naturopath, right?
Yeah, I'm still practicing. Yeah.
Okay, amazing. So what made you get into astrology? How'd you get here?
How to get into astrology?
Yes.
So I was working as a naturopath still. It was one clinic I was working at in Toronto, and I've actually got a lot of readings by different astrologers, and they were okay, like, but nothing was like, oh, okay, this was brilliant, like, you know. And there was someone that I met at this one particular clinic I was working at, and she's like, oh, can I do a reading for you? And I was like, yeah, sure. And when she did the reading for me, I was like, how the hell did you know? Like, that's very detailed, and you're very detailed. And like, people, like, these are things that, like, you can't just be like making that up. That's not a generic thing. It's not a vague thing. And then I started realizing, wow, there's actually, it depends who your astrologer is. Just like it depends who you're working with when it comes to anything. And the reading that I received, something inside of me like awakened, and I was like, I need to do this. And I could be very obsessive. It's actually in my chart. Obsessive in the sense where a strong gut response. So when I'm like, I need to do this, I don't know why. I don't have it all mapped out and figured out, but I've learned to trust that instinct. So that kind of awakened something in me. And then I just went like full throttle into astrology, started using it because I was coaching, and I'm still coaching people at the time, using it with them. And then literally watching, I think for a year straight, I watched like on average 3 hours of astrology a day, every day. Wow. Some days was 7 hours, some days 1 hour. Like I was like obsessed. And then it kind of just molded and morphed into what it is today.
And you're so good at it. I mean, you downloaded it really fast, because I do feel like it's part of your purpose.
It is. It's like in my chart, just the type of the spiritual, like the healing, the out of the box thinking, and astrology is definitely a tool. And what was interesting, something actually activated in my chart when that astrology, when I studied it, like it was literally monumental according to my transits. And I'm like, this is crazy how you can work with your energy. It's like astrology doesn't predict, like it's not like it's psychic, but it definitely can help you make sense of the themes and the patterns that you are in your life, because we're going to go through highs and lows. It doesn't matter how much you vibrate and meditate, it doesn't matter you know, work on your whatever, you're still going to have to go through challenges in life. And I found astrology to me was my anchor. And it really helped me lean into what I was experiencing. And sometimes it's not fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do. I just love that analogy, because it's, you say it's your anchor, and it, you know, it just brings to mind like your truth. It's your truth. Yeah. And we are blanketed throughout our lives with stories. And some of those stories are heavily narrated by others, like our parents, and some society, and some us. And then we evolve, and we have to, you know, assess, like, is this still my story? Let's go back to the truth. Let's go back to actually my foundation. And, you know, the reading I did with you was the life purpose reading. And that was pretty profound, because it was at a time, I would not ever expect you to remember, but it was a time where I had just gone through all my mediumship training, and I was like, am I going down the right path? And you're like, 100%, like looking at my chart, you're telling me all these things, and it's like, you are meant to serve. You are meant to, like, my Pisces moon, which I believe you have a Pisces moon as well. And then you're a Leo, and I'm a Leo rising. So there's just a lot of similarities that you were able to really kind of give me a virtual hug and say, like, I know you're scared, but keep going, because it's written in the stars, like, you're supposed to do this work. And I needed that. I really needed that at that time. So thank you.
You're welcome. I'm glad you took it and applied it. That's the beauty. It's like, I'm just a messenger, but it's really up to you what you do with the message.
Yes. And I, you know, this podcast, thank you for coming on here, but the whole purpose of this podcast is to share with people all of the tools to help them on their own evolution. And I have gotten kind of a little bit addicted to my own self-evolution, because I know healing is possible. I know growth is possible. And I've watched how far I've come. And it wouldn't have been possible without modalities like this. It just wouldn't have been. And that's why I want people to get a taste of what you offer, because if you get a good astrologist that can communicate to you in a way that you understand, it will change everything.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. And I'm just so excited to introduce everyone to you, because you light up my world. When I get like see your TikToks, you always make me laugh, but it's always packed with good content. You know, you're not trying to just fill up the feed.
Yeah.
it's like, she's really intelligent. I mean, you're very, very smart, you know, I love it. What is your favorite thing about what you do?
I think it's these things. It's just getting those little messages from people being like, honestly, you saved me through the pandemic. Or because of that reading, I go back to that reading and it's been like 2 years and it really helps me through the spaces, because that's why I do what I do. It's not just this one off. It's like these are tangible tools that you can use throughout your life. Like I'm all about like that quality, like that really, like I want to give you a lot of value. And it's like that's what I love the most, is the unexpected transformations that I hear from people. It's not the views on the internet or amount of followers I have. Like that doesn't fill my cup. That's cool. That's interesting. It's like, oh wow, okay, that social media is a trip. But it's these small things, the difference that you actually make for people, um, is why I love showing up.
I have to agree with you on that. I think it even came up in my reading that I I manifest very easily, but I'm not like attached to money. Like money doesn't motivate me at all. But what does motivate me is the impact that I can create, the little ripple. And so when I get a testimonial, that makes my nervous system feel so good. And it's not that like when somebody signs up for a reading and money's in the bank, that it's great and it's wonderful and it's an energy exchange. But what stimulates my soul is people saying, wow, that really, really healed me.
Yeah.
Or so I think we're motivated by the same thing when it comes to this work.
Oh yeah, I will not continue certain work if it's no longer aligned. Like I physically can't do it. So I can
Yeah.
never tell my soul, like it's physically impossible. Like that's impossible.
Have
Which
you
is a good
had
thing.
have you had situations, because I have, and I'm just thinking that you probably have too, where your body knows that it's like almost not in alignment, like somebody signed up and then you just ask spirit to, if this isn't in alignment, like let's make this an easy transition to not work together, and then they won't show up, or and something will happen where it's like you weren't supposed to work with that person because it wasn't a match and it wasn't going to be filling on either side. Has that ever happened?
It happened earlier on in my career, definitely, when I wasn't 100% very clear on that energetically. Like I didn't have the emotional, or not vibrational, like container and like anchored in that. Where
Yeah.
now it rarely happens because I am clear, but 100%, that was very frequent in my career, that I just got it because I'm like, oh, I feel bad and I can help them, but it wasn't 100% aligned. And I'm like, well, this isn't, it's not that I don't want to serve them, but there might be someone better for this individual. Because again, it's not about the money. It's about, is this like, I want this to be 100% aligned, because this isn't fun for me or you.
Yeah. Well, and your business is aligned with Renata.
Yeah, it's my whole business. So if I'm not walking the talk, well, that's like what keeps me accountable. Seriously.
Yep. No, I agree with you. And I do such I have such intention. I'm really like every morning, even the container, like with Instagram, like I am not about the metrics. Like I don't care how many followers I have. I really want to have a good conversation with my audience, and I want there to be deep connection there. And with astrology, I feel like I lean on it every single day. And so I do sometimes write about, I'm the Pisces moon, and then being a Cancer, I'm obsessed with the moon. I love the moon so much. But I get some of my content from you because you inspire me so much. But when it comes to like giving out information, as we just talked about earlier, there's so much out there. What are you mostly drawn to? Like what are the big hitters that if somebody's kind of new into astrology, that they should pay attention to? Like, is it the moon, or is it the
No,
retrograde, or?
I think it's whatever that feels called to them. Like it's like, maybe Mercury, like maybe Mercury piques your interest, or maybe you hear something about a Chiron, or maybe you hear something about Lilith in your chart. Like I feel like you follow different, like maybe explore different astrologers who explore different themes or areas of astrology, because there's people who are very into the asteroids and very into like galactic astrology and all this stuff, and then there's me, who I'm like about like life purpose and alignment astrology and with karma involved. So I feel like it really depends number one, how do you want to use astrology? Is it like a day-to-day thing? Do you need it organized? because that's how people's Mercury works. So how are people able to digest information? That's ruled by their Mercury sign.
Okay. So what is your opinion about daily horoscopes?
You know, it depends where people are at on their journey again. I used to be reading up on that, and you know, I had my astrologers or spiritual people I would look at. I would just be waiting for their content because it was like it's like that maybe it was for me, it was external. I needed external guidance. So I didn't have enough trust in myself to just be with the rhythms I had in my life. Do you know what I mean? So that's why it's personal. I'm not against it, but I would tell people, don't use astrology as like use it as a guide, but also don't do things because Mercury is in retrograde. Like there's these rules about astrology that sometimes people get too literal around, and this is where it can become a bit dogmatic. Right? Because there's a lot of things that happen with astrology in the spiritual community, certain portals or events I personally don't resonate with. I was like, it doesn't do anything for me. So I'm not going to pretend to like hop on that bandwagon. Somebody else might resonate with that. And it's like, okay, cool. Maybe whatever that message is or that energy is or what it's leaning towards is something that your soul wants you to explore or heal or uncover. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
so
it absolutely does.
Call to, if you don't do all the things, you're going to fail at spirituality because it can be overwhelming.
Yeah. And you really can't. Like you can't fail at this. You can make it more painful, but you can't fail. Another thing that helped me a lot is we were able to, in the life purpose reading, look into a lot of my shadow work. And so express what is it that you look at when you're looking at someone's shadow?
Well, I'm looking at I call them the gone wrong or the unconscious expressions of certain like aspects, which are connections between two planets, like how they talk. It could bring out more shadow energy. So there's endless combinations of that. There's not just like a particular one. The moon, right? Our shadow of our moon and our sun, our shadow of our rising too, like the gone right, the gone wrong, or Mercury. And then again, I look at Saturn, because Saturn is where we master things, but it's also where we can have a lot of insecurities, doubts, and inhibitions. And we can be very like doubtful of ourselves. And then especially then there's freaking Pluto. What's Pluto doing in your chart? That's like the ruler of the underworld, right? And then especially if Pluto makes communications or connections to other important positions or planets in the chart, that's going to maybe highlight an area of fear or an insecurity or an unconscious pattern, right? And then lastly, we look at Chiron, because that is our karmic, I call it our karmic wound, right? I call Chiron our karmic wound. And it's also our greatest healing gift, but that can be just a bundle of shadow stuff and unhealed aspects of ourselves that we have to integrate in this lifetime.
And mine was about opening the throat chakra. And that has been really difficult for me. And growing up, you know, I would say things wrong. I would say, I'd mix up syllables, and I have like kind of minor dyslexia. And then I would mix up words, and, you know, and so your family kind of makes fun of you and they think it's funny, but what it does is it keeps you quiet. And then this podcast and, you know, pushing myself to speak more, I very rarely mess up. And I think it is about healing the throat chakra and just talking and doing the work. And so when I do the shadow work, all of a sudden those blocks, those hiccups, those areas I used to really mess up and carry immense shame are now dissipating, which is really like, I'm very proud of myself.
Oh yeah. So those are some of the aspects that I always look at as the shadow. And again, those are just generalizations, but it's a good place to start.
Yeah. Oh, I can feel like people are going to get so excited to book a session. And so I did the life purpose and that like kicked it off, but I really am excited to do the other offer you have, which is like is it a 12-year forecast or what is that?
12-month forecast. So it's a year forecast.
Yeah.
I knew what you meant, but I didn't want the readers to listeners to get confused. So what you generally get is I take your chart and then we look at, well, what are your cycles of the year? Like, what are your areas of healing or transformation? What are your big challenges, or where your big opportunities lie? And I will because of the time limit, I go through your main overarching energy. Like this is the stuff that's going to be like in your space. And of course you'll get the different variation in the flavor of it throughout the year, where I give you like a 70-page, it's like all your transits, the start date, the end date, how, what that energy is, how that's playing out for you, the planets involved. And why that's important is because you can reference back. I don't remember all my transits. That's impossible. In one day, you have about like 15 transits occurring in your chart, 15 different connections. Like we don't, that's not how it works. We look at certain important planets or positions hitting certain angles in your chart to map out, this is your forecast reports. But then you still get every nitty gritty detail of how the year is going to play out, which some of these only last a couple of days, a week, a month, and they overlap. So at least you can reference back. You're like, why do I feel like I'm lost at sea? And then you pull up your report and you see the dates and you're like, you may be feeling lost right now. And this is what you should do. And you're like, oh, okay. So I'm not going crazy. So it's kind of like a step-by-step cosmic roadmap on like how to respond, how to, and what to do when, kind of like a general cosmic guide if you like to work with your personal astrological rhythms.
Amazing. I'm going to have to definitely do that with you. So I don't know if you've ever heard me tell this story, but I would love to know your perspective on it. And I hope it doesn't like crush me because I'm so attached to it, but it's just something I've sort of made up for myself. So I talk to on a daily basis, like 3 Jennies. And so I have like my sun sign, and that is me at my, let's say my highest self. My Cancer is my highest self. And then I have my ego, who I call Vanessa, who's like a pencil skirt, like wearing attorney from Manhattan who will burn your effing house down if you mess with her. And then I just associate it, like my rising is really my ego. And it can be gone wrong or gone right, but that's usually if something's going to go wrong, it's not my Cancer, it's not my sun or my moon. And then the moon in Pisces is Sarah, and she's my inner child. She's the sweet one that sleeps with a stuffed animal and loves pajamas and, you know, flowers by her bedside. And so there's these different facets of me, and I know how to nurture all of them. And that's like when I'm my best, but I also know when one is gone wrong. And so have you ever had any associations with, you know, the big 3, the sun, the moon, and the rising, or am I just like so out there?
No, you're not out there at all. I just, cause I'm Leo rising and sun, right? But my Leo though is positioned in the 12th house. So I have a very different expression of that Leo. It's still like, it's actually my Leo rising. That is that confident, I guess maybe charismatic impression people get. But my Leo sun actually is like, I don't like, like if I'm in the mood, I will. I'll be fun, but depends if I'm in the mood. I need 35 hours of alone time. Plus with my Pisces moon, I will reference, I'll joke, I'll be like, that's my Pisces moon being delusional again. Or like, but it's just more me labeling a certain aspect of myself. I don't feel like, and I want to, and I agree with how you identify with them and also clarify. So people are like, my moon is making me, it's no, we're just giving language to us, which is multifaceted. Completely. You know, some people might label that as their saboteur or their higher self or their, you know, their default survival way. So it's not like my moon is making me do that, but it's the part of me, which is my emotional, instinctual self, which is my Pisces moon, is so bloody sensitive. And I giggle because I say to people, I'm like, you have no idea how much I'm dying on the inside every day. And how much work I've had to do. And they're like, oh no, Renata has it together. I'm like, that's my son. Just like faking it till I make it. It's not that I'm not being authentic, but it's like, I show up to just be like, put everything aside. But I'm like, literally sometimes super anxious, even when I first started on social media, and sometimes still when I put things out there, I'm like, oh, there's my Pisces moon having a panic attack.
Yep. I can deeply relate to that. And I love that side of myself because the sensitivity in me recognizes the sensitivity in you. And that makes me really good at what I do. And I am so in touch with the underworld and the shadow side and the inner child work. And it's the foundation of everything. So that's why when I work with people, I'm like, let's go back in time. And I've, you know, walked through some really dark areas that I think I can guide people and be the light in those dark areas for them. And it's interesting that we both have that Leo Pisces because there's that polarity. So
So
people
different.
think I'm intimidating. Like I had a friend recently say that she was scared of me, and that like broke me into a million pieces. I'm like, what? Why? But I think it's that Leo.
Mhm.
Like, oh,
Yeah, it definitely is. Like I can come off, I've always come off, or people have always seen me as confident. And then my closest friends were like, no, you have no idea. Renata is like literally the softest person. She just like, that is her, that's my default. That's not that I'm again faking it, but that's that duality in my personality.
yep.
Where my Leo son's like, oh my God, get over it. Like the Pisces moon. And then the Pisces moon's like, I just want to hide and need 45 hours of alone time to decompress.
Yes, yes, I know. And having your chart read helps you have a little bit more compassion for
Oh,
yourself, because
so much.
people are like, I'm an extrovert or I'm an introvert. It's like, what if you're both? Because you probably are. And I really don't like those labels at all, because I think that there's a book called Quiet by Susan Cain. Have you ever read it?
No, I haven't.
One of my absolute favorite books. And it pretty much, in a nutshell, it's about how at the turn of the century, people went from the working man to the salesman. And so the term good personality didn't even get coined into the 1920s. And shortly after that followed like a heavy um, production of antidepressants, because people started to be inauthentic and needed to be like act a certain way, have a good personality to make money. And that wreaked havoc on the nervous system. And so extrovert, introvert, it's like, it depends on the situation. It depends on the energy alignment with the people in the room, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so when you have your chart read and you start to understand, and Renata walks you through, especially the big three, you don't have shame, because you can be both.
Mm-hmm. It actually gave me a lot of peace to realize the position, because I was like, I'm a Leo. Everyone's like you're different for a Leo in the sense that you don't mind having a lot of alone time. And even when I was a child, I would play for hours by myself,
Mm-hmm.
hours. Like, and again, I would also be extroverted and play with the kids, but I still have no problem being with my own energy and being alone for hours. But the shadow of that, I gotta sometimes pull myself out, because I can get too hermity,
Mm-hmm.
right? Where I'm like, Renata, you need to come back from fantasy landing and start interacting with society again.
Yeah, I can relate to that. And I love my own company. Like, I
Hmm.
know that I'm a sweet person. I know that I'm a kind person. I know that I'm playful and like have this kind of little girl aspect. And so I teach people about their default setting and learning who you are before the world touches you or any other energies touch you, because that is what you always want to try to go back to. Because when you're out in the world, energy, people don't protect their auric fields. And we know this. And so then they're half themselves and half whoever's energy they just walk through. And, it's just, it gets messy. And so you have to get really familiar with who you are in that space of just you. And I can relate. I love hanging out with me.
Yeah, I have no problem. But I also recognize when it's gone too far.
Yeah.
And because it can create an anxiety about having to now interact. But once I'm there, I'm good. But I'm very particular now. Like I will not do things again, all about alignment. I'm like, no, I'm not doing this. I don't care to do this. This is not aligned. I ain't doing it, because I'm gonna suffer.
Yep. I have to share with you. So before I get on the call, sometimes I just like to draw a card. And so I have this new Oracle of the Roses deck. It's absolutely stunning, very feminine, very me. It's by Sherilyn Darcy. But I drew a card, and it is the Wild Rose, and it's the Loner. And it kind of made me laugh just because of what we just talked about. So I'm going to read it to you if you don't mind.
Yeah, do it. It's probably gonna tell me to get a life. Okay.
Oh, okay. The Loner is about going at it alone because others may indeed drag you backwards with the weight of their unnecessary opinions or baggage. You have got this. You can do this, and the outcome will be much better if you do the progress alone. Could you rid yourself of something or someone at the moment? Energy will be much easier to get flowing if you ditch the load. This is so funny. The Loner is not lonely, though. They are confident in their own space and with their own ways, and yet they do develop small circles of people which are firmly based on quality, interest, and common ground rather than quantity. The question associated with this: what are you happy doing alone and have no need to share in order to feel content? And the meanings of this card are self-confidence, simplicity, calm, meditation, and reflection. And the astrological sign is Pisces. I just love it. I love it. And for those listening, I hope that that resonates, because I think sometimes it's like you need permission to like go be alone. That doesn't mean you're lonely.
No, I'm not. I don't feel alone at all. Not at all. Or lonely at all. Yeah, no.
I love it. So, okay. I just, I love that you were giving me your time. I know you're a very busy woman. I don't want to take too much of it, but I want to ask a few more questions because you're here with me. And I know that in the last, I want to say like 6 to 8 weeks, I've had a theme of clients coming to me really working through some very dark depression and shadow aspects. And so is there something going on a bigger scale that has really had us down?
I can't pinpoint specifically. However, right, what came to mind was a self-known in Scorpio.
Okay.
So every 18 months, the lunar-ish, 18 months-ish, the lunar nodes, the collective lunar nodes of destiny and karma shift. They're always opposite signs. So in January 17th, 2022, these collective nodes of destiny, and what they're really there is the north node is collectively where we all have to grow. And the south node is the stuff that we got to release, the shadow, the stuff that's like outdated. And guess what? That south node aspect is Pluto. So this is a lot of like maybe demons surfacing or skeletons flying out of the closet for people, depending on what other planets that south node and Pluto is hitting in their areas of their chart. So that's why I'm not surprised a lot of people are shedding, or they're like, this is expired in my life, or this is done in my life, and they may be holding on to an area of their life that is complete, yet they don't know the next step. So or maybe they have severed that, but they're grieving that loss, even though they know they need to move forward. I would probably bank that on just generalizing the South Node Scorpio. It doesn't surprise me.
Yeah. That does make sense. And Scorpio, talk about shadow side.
Yeah, and you're gonna go to the underworld. It's like an initiation. We're all going through an initiation right now to really focus more on that North Node and Taurus, like where you got to build stability. Where do you got to have that sense of stability and security in your life? And what's that chaos or that constant destruction or drama, or always trying to figure things out and distracting yourself. What's this happening versus like, what do I have tangible, secure things built in my life?
Yes.
Or do I just have this constant state of chaos and transformation?
Oh, the radical responsibility around that alone is tough. But when you start doing it, your life changes. Like you have to start owning your shit.
Oh yeah. And look, I'm speaking from own experience. I got myself known in the 4th house, which is my home, my sense of my roots, my emotional security, and the North Node in my career house. And I'm completely having this death and rebirth there. And I'm like, oh, there's so many things I gotta get in order to build this, like to get to that next level of stability or whatever. And I'm grateful where I'm at, but I've outgrown that part. And there's this new phase in my career, and I have to deal with all this underlying Scorpio stuff and willing to like let things die. And that's not, even though I know it's good, it's not fun. It's not easy. I have tools, but it's still uncomfortable.
Yeah, I'm sure. So here we are talking. It's almost the end of, well, not the end. I feel I'm jumping up weeks. When this releases, it will be almost the end of June, if not the beginning of July. So we're halfway through the year. And so I'm sure that you looked at it at some point of like what 2022 is going to offer us. So we got 6 more months of 2022. Is there any major things that we can look forward to, or should we proceed with caution? Like in that 6-month forecast, would you have any advice or words of wisdom for the listeners?
Well, I'm going to be honest. I get this question a lot on podcasts, and I think it's a great question. It would be working with your nodes. So knowing where these collective nodes are in your chart, as well as your own personal themes. Because again, this is where sometimes people will focus on something where they're like, it's not really resonating with me. Mm-hmm. And you got your own thing that you're going through. So I would really look at where are these collective nodes of destiny? Because this is where all us have to move forward until July 23rd, 2022. So
Okay.
I would focus on that.
Yep.
Anything. Because anytime I'm doing a reading, I'm always looking where people's north and south nodes are, and then how that's affecting their chart, because that will be a very strong theme and energy, because it's destined, it's fated. It's like, this is a fated cycle you're in right now for this amount of time, whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
And there's no escaping it.
Yeah. I do have a question, and I don't actually know. So this is something that I just keep seeing. I didn't know this was part of astrology, and I think it's trendy right now because I'm seeing it all over the place. But what is Lilith?
She's like that dark feminine, like that the powerful feminine. It's kind of like a Scorpio. It's not, maybe I'm not saying this Scorpio energy, but she's that like
siren energy,
siren,
like siren
energy. And I don't actually work with Lilith in the readings. Definitely, I think it's an interesting and an important part of the chart. But she's more of that, like, similar to Chiron, where it's like, where do we have that unwounded feminine energy? It's like getting our feminine power back.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Have you seen that kind of be on trend in a lot?
Oh, that's on trend right now. Everyone's talking about, and I was just like, I love Chiron. So Chiron and me are still like best buds.
Okay.
And the nodes, the lunar nodes are like my thing. But definitely, there are accounts that, I think it's Vika Bradford. She's a great astrologer that really focuses on that type of stuff. I would definitely check her stuff out, because she's great, because it very embodies her energy, right? So it's not that I don't value these asteroids. It's just.
Yeah. And I do follow her. I think it was through you that we were connected, and we were in a class. I don't know, but she has agreed to come on the podcast, and I actually want to have it all be about Lilith. And she is so sexual and so gorgeous, and so she's gonna really be able to dive into that. But I wanted to just see your point of view, because it just seems like each day I'm seeing something about Lilith.
Well, yeah, I think it's a powerful and it's an important part of your chart. I understand my Lilith, but as an astrologer, that's not something, just with the amount of time I have with people in the reading. So it's important too. This is why, if someone's like, well, I want to explore more of that aspect, maybe I'm not the right person. It really depends what your goals are.
Yeah.
And how you want to use astrology.
Do you do readings where you will assess a relationship?
Yeah, this is compatibility reading.
Okay. I think that's amazing. So whether it be your, your child, your husband, your mom, your sister, whatever. But I think that can give us a lot of knowledge and tools on how to manage the relationship with ease.
Yeah. And it gives you just some indication on, I'm going to be honest, before astrology's actually allowed me to have even more understanding and patience and compassion for people.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, their Mercury, the way they think and communicate is like this, and mine is like this. Sometimes we can still get frustrated and not realize why people are the way they are, even if we love them to death, where it's helped me actually allow people to just show up. Like, it's created so much space, especially in my personal relationships with my family, my parents, my good friends. And I find it is a very powerful tool when you learn how you and another person interact and what you trigger in each other. It's saved some of my relationships, like literally.
Have you ever, you're single, right?
Yes.
Are you? I know you guys aren't going to be able to see this, but her expression on her face was priceless. Would you ever be in a position to be like, can I have your birth information before we go on a date? Do a little background research.
No, surprisingly, I don't. And
profiling, that's what I was looking for.
I don't know. I feel like, don't get me wrong, eventually I'm going to want to know their details. And at first when I go with someone, because sometimes, again, because I know too much, I might already go in with this filter and knowing. And I kind of feel like I'm violating their,
I know.
I don't know. That's just, and look, I get it. If there's, I don't know. That's where I'm at. And again, if they're giving you permission, but then sometimes I don't know if people are really aware of what permission they're giving you. So me personally, I won't, but depending on if I want to see them again, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I
I love
definitely
it.
have like past partners and stuff. 100%. I was like, oh, this is why we definitely didn't work out. Makes
Who are
sense.
you drawn to? Like, what signs are you drawn to?
Um, you know, it's interesting because I've dated a lot of Scorpios, and allegedly we don't get along. But then in our pattern, compatibility pattern, this is where
Mhm.
this is where we take basic astrology and we actually apply it in what it really computes to. We had really great patterns. But
Yeah.
what I've also learned in astrology, because there's been some relationships that weren't complete in my life, and I use it as a tool to heal, because I'm like, oh, I totally see why this pattern brought out that trigger, and it's has nothing to do with you, right? It actually allowed me to heal.
Yeah.
And it actually showed me I can't judge someone because of their sun sign, because technically our chart maps out completely different than that one isolated planet. And to take it further, depending on if someone's in their highest state of consciousness, one of my best friends, we have like, it's like an offbeat compatibility. Like it's awful. Like it's like you would just be like, we shouldn't be friends.
Yeah.
Yet we're like sisters because we're so different, but we've done a lot of our own personal work and we can communicate. And this is where you have that. I find if we were in our highest expression, most of us would be authentically, which the planet isn't.
Mhm.
We would be able to like be okay with everyone. But the problem is a lot of people aren't operating in their true pattern and expression.
I
So
100% agree with that.
this is why sometimes I don't want to ask, because I'm like, we can have the best compatibility match, and then my Pisces delusional moon is going to be like, oh my God, maybe we have so many bond. And I'm like, this is where I have to put boundaries in place with myself, because old me starts planning the wedding, where new me is like, absolutely not. I want to even see if I want to go on a next date with you. So that's been a huge healing progression for me.
Yeah. I read once a Cancer, it's like what the signs say after they have sex, and Cancer was like, when are we getting married? And I was like, yeah, that is me. What's interesting is, so I have a thing for Aries. Like I could pick an Aries out in a room, and it's usually Aries sun or Aries rising. Like it's Aries dominant for sure. Aries moon sometimes can be agitating, but it's the Aries sun and Aries rising. And my best friend growing up was April 12th. My husband, my first husband, April 12th, and my current husband, April 12th. And that is some weird shit. There's just times where you're like, what is in the two husbands that I've had are so different from each other. Like they couldn't be more opposite. And so there's just so much in a chart that you can't really, when it says compatible, and Cancer and Aries are supposed to be not compatible at all. And I love it. I love Leos and Aries because I just love that, like, truth.
Directness. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, it makes me feel really comfortable. And it's probably because I have an open solar plex in human design. And so I want to be around people that know what they're thinking, that can say their thoughts. And so people that are not in alignment, it's magnified within me, and that's uncomfortable.
Yeah,
So probably fire signs for sure.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I could talk about astrology all the time. And, when it comes to this work, like you were just saying, like we never want to cross boundaries with people, but we live our work. Like we truly are mentors every minute of our life, because we've embodied this so much that we don't mean to be reading people. I don't mean to ever be reading people, but it ends up coming out of my mouth, because it's like you're wearing a blue shirt and also I see this, and so it's hard to turn it off. But that's probably why we have smaller and smaller circles as we advance in this work, because we know that the people that love us and get us, we can just sort of dump or be our true selves.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, that's been because when I'm at the bar, or if I ever do go out where I used to, I can't have superficial conversations. No. So I'm always like, oh, you broke up? What happened?
I know.
I talk about it. And they're just like, I can tell it feels so, I'm like, I'm the perfect, like, it's fine. I'm the perfect person to talk to. It's okay, totally fine. Like, how does that feel? Like, what? And they're just like, and I'm like, yeah, not really socially, but I don't care. Like, and most people find it very refreshing, because they're like, well, or it's just the questions I have. And Because I'm just like, I'm tired. I can't be fake. I don't care. If you
Never.
think I'm weird and you want to walk away, good. I don't give a shit. I don't give a shit.
Yeah, it's
So
true. The
I
last
find
time I went to a bar, I gave out like 4 cards. And
it
like, it's the word bar. I don't even like the word bar, but there's this new place that opened and it has live country music. And I don't know if you know this about me, but I'm like a huge country music fan. And I ended up sitting next to a woman and I was like, I could just see her hands radiating with light. And I was like, are you a healer? And she was like, what? And I think I forgot what she was, an accountant, maybe, I don't know. But then she was like, why? And I was like, I just feel like you're like, your hands have it, like you could do Reiki. Oh my gosh. And you do Reiki. We didn't even like mention that. Oh my gosh. You do amazing Reiki. You do remote healing. That's profound. Somebody asked me the other day if healing on one of my lives, if remote Reiki worked. And I was like, yes, absolutely. If you get somebody good, and Renata is good. So there, we'll put that out there. But anyway, this woman was thinking about transitioning, and I ended up, giving her my card, and she booked an appointment. And so it's like the superficial surface talk. I'm so socially awkward. I'm so weird. So it's like, let's just get to it. Or like you said, go talk to somebody else.
Yeah, it doesn't bother me anymore. And like, mind you, I can be in certain environments where I have to be like whatever professional. But I'm just like, no, I don't have the energy anymore. I don't care. Like literally and I don't go out often. I was at a restaurant and I was just chatting with some people and I was like, okay, what are we gonna talk about next? I'm done with this conversation. And they're just like laughing. They're like, okay, so what about,
Oh, that is for sure the Leo. Like, I am not entertained right now. I'm not stimulated. So we need to move it on to something that is going to make me feel like, better in this moment.
Like, I'm not following this conversation. And again, it depends on my mood. It just depends on my mood. So I'm just like an unpredictable human being sometimes.
The self-love you have along with it makes it all so beautiful. I love watching you talk. I love coming, you do the moon rituals. Are you doing one
this month? Yes.
Okay. Well,
it's already happened.
I know. I'm so sorry. I'm like, gosh, this whole time thing, but I love watching you work because you channel. So you're very, very intelligent. You have the facts, the astrology, you have a Reiki healing, which is profound. But then I watch you channel, like wisdom just flows out of you. And it's like listening to like a rapper or, it's like it just coming out of your mouth. It's amazing. And so you are a performer. Like you're meant to be seen. You're meant to talk. You're meant to be on stage. And it's awesome. So hopefully everyone that's listening, just know I recommend Renata through and through. She's profound at what she does. Her life purpose readings are where I'd start, because that's all about you, and it's going to help you have that self-love, have that understanding of the duality that naturally exists in your being. Do you have anything to add? Tell me your Instagram handles, your website, how people can contact, and anything else that comes to mind.
So yeah, my Instagram is online with Renata. I'm sure you'll link it. You have your bio notes. Please note that I only have one account on Instagram and TikTok. I have an army of fake demon accounts. There's no backup accounts. There's only the one and only Align with Renata on Instagram, and official Align with Renata on TikTok. So those are the best places to start with me. And then the links in my bios have the links to my website, my offerings, rituals, my newsletter, all that type of stuff. So I feel like those are the best places to connect with me. And you'll at least be entertained.
You will. You will absolutely be entertained for sure. Well, I love you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I know that I will see you on Instagram for sure. And I'm going to definitely be booking the year forecast, because that's exciting. I've got a lot of things brewing. So I'd like to get some alignment on what months I need to focus and what months I need to rest, because that Pisces moon, if she doesn't rest, things get real messy. Mm-hmm. So thank you, Renata. And so much I will see you on the gram.
Take care.
Bye.